Welcome once again to this lesson. In this lesson, we are going to be discussing HTML elements. So, as previously discussed in the introduction, an HTML element is defined by a start tag, some content, and then you would have to have an end tag. So, what we are going to do is just have a simple tag name, which can be anything. And then you're going to have your content in the tag, right? And then you close it with the tag name. So this is what a simple HTML element is. So so the entire thing, which is the beginning tag, the content, and the end tag, is what constitute an HTML. So let's look at some examples of HTML elements. Uh, let's look at the H1 element. So we're going to have the H1, which is a header tag, and this Visual Studio Code already completes my uh, elements for me. So I can put in there my first H1 element, right? And so if I refresh this page, you have this my first H1 element in there. So I can have something similar, but let's make this H2. So it has to be the same. And you see that the element is showing right there, right? So that is what if I have an H3 header, you can have it like this. So the the main idea is it should have your tag name, the content, and then the end tag name, right? And that's what constitute the element. Again, for another example is, let's say we want to use the paragraph tag, right? So we go to p tag, which means paragraph, and then say this is our first paragraph. Assuming I can spell paragraph, but yes. And so if I refresh this, you have this as the paragraph. So this is just the simple formatting if you want to write an element. So we're going to look at some basic elements next. So HTML elements can in fact be nested together, right? Meaning that we can have elements containing other elements, right? So the very first one that we are going to look at is our main HTML element. So for example, when you're writing an HTML, you have to start with the HTML, and this is your HTML element, right? So in here, you can have, uh, and just to be clear, with the HTML element, we need to specify what we call the doc type, right? The doc type, so I'm just gonna put it in here, and I'm gonna explain to you what that means. So, so this is basically, uh, it's always supposed to be your first line of your HTML element, and what it does is it's it's a declaration or an instruction to your web browser to tell you what version of HTML the page is written in. So the page that you're going to be creating, you need to specify what version of HTML is are you going to be using. And the reason for this is because it kind of ensures that the all web browsers displays your content the same way, right? So that's what it's generally used for. So this doc type that we just put here, it's generally used for HTML5 and above. So this is what we are currently going to be using. Uh, if you are interested in knowing what the HTML4, strict HTML4 would be, would have been uh, this, right? So has all these W3 org stuff in there, right? So it's generally we are just going to use the the HTML5 version, but just so you know, this is specified, so it tells the browsers what version of HTML you are using. So like I said, this is always going to be your first line, and then you're going to have your actual HTML, and that's it. So I'm just going to delete this one. So this is your HTML element, right? So every document is going to be in a format, HTML document is going to be in a format like this. So this is your main HTML element, and we are going to nest other elements in this particular element. So there's an element that goes in here, and we refer to it as the body element. And what the body element is it's uh it first has a start body and then an end body tag, right? But what it really does is it contains the body of your document, right? So anything that you want to go into your page's main body, it has to go into this body element. So that's what this body is used for. So you're gonna put some elements within the body element and see how it looks like. So this body element is very important because it defines the body of your page, right? Which is your HTML. So that's what the body is for. So we are going to define other elements that are going to go into the body. So now let's define our first element, and we are going to call it the H1 because we want a heading for our page. I'm going to call it my first heading. All right, that's okay. And then let's put a paragraph, a P element in there. So I'm going to put a P element, and I'm going to say this is my first paragraph. This is my first paragraph. So already we are building some kind of structure, right? So if I just refresh this, this is what I have. It's showing your heading and then your paragraph. So again, some elements uh, may display correctly if you forget the end tag, right? Uh, and some might not, right? So for example, if I forget this one and then I refresh this, you can see that it's still displayed correctly, right? But let's imagine that I forgot this one, this H1 end tag, and then I refresh it. You see that the P tag did not display correctly. So it's very important that you don't forget your end tags, right? Because it helps you to get the formatting right and not get any weird outputs. We actually do have some HTML elements that don't have uh, content, right? And those are called empty elements. Example of that is one element we are going to look at, and we're going to call it the uh, BR, that's the break, line break element. So for example, if I wanted to put a line break in this paragraph, I'm going to put in a break. So I'm going to just say this is, and then I put a tag, BR. You can see that there's no closing tag to this. Is just one tag, which is BR, right? And then no content and no closing tag. So if I refresh this, you can see this is, it breaks the line, comes to the next line and continues. So this is one of those elements that we refer to as an empty element because they do not have content in there. as you can see. For those of you asking, what about using uppercase for your tag names? It really doesn't matter. It's doesn't matter if you use uppercase or lowercase, it still does the same thing. But as a general rule, I always use lowercase. It's a preference thing. So most programmers generally would use lowercase for their names. We do have so many elements that we'll be talking about as we go on in the course. We are not gonna talk about all of them here or most of them here. It's by need, and so some of them I'm just gonna mention. Like we have the for example, the area tag, right? And the area tag uh, usually is used to define an area inside an image map, right? So if you're looking for an area inside an image map, you use an area. Uh, you can also use the canvas, right? Uh, elements for usually to draw graphics, scripting, JavaScript stuff. And then you have the column to specify columns, column group, whatever. Then you have your dialog element. And then most importantly, we are going to look at this, and this is your div, right, later on down the course. And it defines a section in a document. So if you want to specify a section in a document, you can use the div element. So most of these work, we are going to be using them further down the course, and we're going to be using them together with CSS to define and style your page. So this section or this lesson ends here, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you, and thanks for watching.